good morning friends. How are you all? Welcome back. In this new session, we will be discussing about chapter number 10 from history. That is the making of national movement 1870s to 1947. This is a very lengthy chapter and we are dividing this into 3 parts, and today we will be seeing the part 1. This chapter is very important as per your 10th standard syllabus is concerned. So we will be studying the concepts in detail. So let's move on to the concepts. Introduction first of all. In the previous chapters we have looked at the British conquest of territories and takeover of kingdoms, that is probably in chapter number 1 and 2. Then the introduction of new laws and administrative institutions, changes in the lives of the peasants and tribals, that is chapter tribals, decus and all. Then debates regarding the condition of women, the chapter is women, caste and reform. Educational changes in the 19th century, some of the educationalists, Ramakrishna Mission, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Rukia Shikawat, so all these, Vidyasagar, isn't it? All these educationalists. Then social and religious reforms, that is widow remarriage, then abolition of sati, then the revolt of 1857 and its aftermath, means afterwards what happened. So all these topics we studied in our previous classes, and we will be studying this in this chapter, or I can say all the effects of all these chapters. Finally it leads to the overall national movement, a movement for the freedom of nation, so freedom movement, and that we are going to study the details, or I can say, you can say struggle. So let's continue the topic. The dissatisfaction with the British rule intensified means तीव्रता पकड़ लिया उसका, it intensified in 1870s and in 1880s. So they established East India Company in the year 1600, or then slowly by 1870s or 1880s, all the nationwide people realized that British rule were just or I can say unjust, and that is why the movement of nationalism developed in the minds of Indians. The Arms Act was passed in 1878, and what this Arms Act says, allowing Indians to possess arms. So even the Indians can keep the arms. Earlier it was denied for the Indians to keep arms. In the same year, Vernacular Press Act was also enacted. It's an effort to silence those who critical of government. The act allowed government to confiscate. Confiscate means you can take or to seize the assets of newspapers published anything that was found objectionable. So Vernacular Press Act was passed in the year 1878. And the act says that if any newspaper or article, if they published anything about critical about the government, then it can be seized by the government, or they can take the assets of that newspapers. In 1883, Ilbert Bill was introduced. Then what is this Ilbert Bill, or what it says? The bill provided for the trial of British or European persons by Indians and sought equality between British and the Indian judges in the country. Now let's study this concept in detail. So now before that, see, the British people, they were in India. They were in the higher post, like including the judges, lawyers, etc. Indians were also there. So in a court, whenever the trial used to take place, at that time, if an Indian person or Indian, if he committed any crime, then sunwai jo hota tha, or trial, or in that trial, the judgment was given by the British as well as the Indians together. So even the British people, they used to give their judgment as well as the Indians. But whenever a British person is arrested for doing any criminal or doing for any crime, then his trial is to be conducted by the Britishers only, not by the Indian judges. You got it? That means if any British person, if he has committed any mistake, उनका सुनवाई सिर्फ और सिर्फ ब्रिटिश ही करते थे, ब्रिटिश जजेस ही करते थे, और ब्रिटिश जज ही उनको पनिशमेंट जो भी है उनको देना है देते थे. उनको सुनने का अधिकार इंडियंस को नहीं था. It was just a unjust rule, isn't it? Why that type of discrimination? So whenever he is in India, of course, if he has committed any mistake, then he should be tried by the Indian judges as well as the British judges. And why they made that only the Britishers are allowed to, or I can say, give him judgment? Why not the Indians? And that is the reason that in 1883 that Ilbert Bill was passed, and accordingly, if any European or British, if he is committed any mistake, at that time the judgment, Indians, the European person by Indians, and sought equality between the British and Indian judges. उसका सुनवाई दोनों करेंगे. That was the Ilbert Bill says. Here the picture is about two great personalities to whom we are going to study in detail afterwards. One is Dadabhai Naoroji and another one is A.O. Hume, that is Alan Octavian Hume. He is a founder of National Congress. Okay, I think we have missed one, maybe this related information. A nation in the making. It has often been said that the Congress in the first 20 years was moderate in its objectives and methods. Actually, this Indian National Congress was formed in the year 1885 in the month of December. So important personalities like Dadabhai Naoroji, then Firoz Shah Mehta, then this Motilal Nehru, in fact all these important delegates were there in that meeting. That was the Indian National Congress. It was formed by he is a retired judge from England, A.O. Hume, and Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, they were the active leaders of Congress during that time. It has often said that the Congress in the first years or 20 years was moderate in its objectives and methods. During this, it demanded a greater voice for Indians in the government and administration. This, as I told you, in the year 1885, the Indian National Congress was formed, and for first 20 years, so they were very moderate. Moderate means they were not, as I think you can say that, they are very generous towards the British rule. So they wanted to bring changes in India by the British. For that, they wanted to make them aware through writing articles, through petitions, through writing letters and all. They don't want to do any type of, or I can say, हल्ला गुल्ला मचाने के करके नहीं, बहुत शांति से करना चाहते थे, and that's why they are very moderate. During this, it demanded a greater voice for Indians in the government and administration. What they stressed? They stressed more on the British government to include more and more Indians in the government as well as administration. It wanted the legislative councils to be made more representatives. Legislative council, we have even today Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, but at that time Lok Sabha general election was not there, so you can say Rajya Sabha type. So more and more representatives, and given more and more power for Indians, and introduced in provinces where none existed. जहाँ कुछ भी नहीं है, जहाँ कुछ exist ही नहीं है, वहाँ पर उसको introduce करने के लिए उन्होंने सोचा. It demanded that Indians be placed in high positions in the government. So more and more legislative councils, and in that more and more Indians to be included. That was their demand. Second, demanded that Indians to be placed high positions in the government. It may be that high positions means for that what is maybe in the government administration. High positions, high rank should be given to the Indians. Earlier it was reserved only for the British people, not for the Indians. For this purpose, it called the civil service examination to be held in India as well, not just in London. At that time, civil service examination, what you can say that for IAS, IPS, so such type of competitive examination, it used to held only in England, and the the Indians, they want that even the Indians must be given that higher positions, and for that they need to pass that IAS, IPS and all, and for that this type of competitive examinations like civil service examination must be held in India also. If it is held in London, all people cannot afford to go to London to write examination. So it will be easy if the same examination is conducted in India as well. So that was their demand. Okay, 3 demands as far. The demand for Indianization in administration was part of the movement against racism. It is not movement, it is movement. Since most important jobs at that time were monopolized by white officials, the British generally assumed that the Indians could not be given positions of responsibility. See, that is racism. White race, black race, isn't it? The Indians as well as the British people. And the British were of the opinion that the higher positions cannot be given to the Indians. Higher positions of responsibility. Responsible positions cannot be given to the Indians, and all this, it was monopolized. Monopolized मतलब एक ही को दिया जाता था, and that was to the British, and the Indian National Congress leaders were against to this. Since British officers were sending a major part of their large salaries home, Indianization, it was hoped, would also reduce the drain of wealth to England. See, if we have to appoint more and more, the British people, then we have to pay them more. More and more salaries must be given to them, and at that time, Indian money would go to England, because they will definitely carry the money or the salary or their savings to England. If in that place, if the Indians were appointed, so of course they will also be paid more, but that money will remain or detain in India only. So that is called Indianization. India का जो wealth है वो बाहर नहीं जाएगा, इंडिया में ही रहेगा. Demand included the separation of judiciary from executive, the repeal मतलब you can say to undo law, मतलब उसको as it is रहना, undo करना. So the Arms Act, repeal of what? The Arms Act, and the freedom of speech and expression. All these were the demands of the moderates. The moderates, the early Congress leaders, they wanted to bring changes from the British in India. So, it may be more and more inclusion of, or I can say, representatives in councils or higher positions or responsibility jobs for the Indians, or civil service examination to be conducted in India. The demand may be then Indianization, so that the wealth will remain even in India. So all these were the demands of the early Congress leaders, and they requested the British government to consider this, and they expected also that the British will listen to it. They will accept our demands. They will understand our feelings. Let's see what will happen. The early Congress also raised a number of economic issues. It declared that the British rule had leads to poverty and famine. because of British rule, poverty, and it leading to poverty and famine. Famine, you know, that drought-like condition, not able to grow anything. Okay, famine. Increased land revenue impoverished the peasants and the zamindars, and exports of grains, not grains, to Europe had created food shortages. So what will happen? So many things happened economically also. People started becoming very poor, or I can say people remained poor, especially the peasants and the zamindars, due to high land tax, or you can say high revenue, land revenue. And they requested it should be reduced so that they can come out of their poverty. The Congress demanded reduction of revenue, cut in military expenditure, and more funds for irrigation. So, on the other hand, what you can do is reduction of revenue, that is land revenue, and then cut in military expenditure. The British used to keep a huge army in India, isn't it? And the maintenance charges, everything put on Indians through the taxes. So, but the army is for the British, and that's it. Cut मिलिट्री का जो आप एक्सपेंडिचर कर रहे हो उसको कट करो, एंड दैट मनी शुड बी डाइवर्टेड फॉर प्रोवाइडिंग इरिगेशन facilities to the farmers as well as the peasants. Simple. It passed many resolutions on the salt tax, treatment of Indian laborers abroad, and suffering of forest dwellers caused by an interfering forest administration. In the previous chapters, we have seen that because of their British interference, many tribals, they had to leave their forest, and they found employment in the tea plantations of Southeast Asian nations, isn't it? And they wanted to now improve the condition of those workers too. This shows that despite being a body of educated elite means the studied people, the Congress did not talk only on behalf of the professional groups, zamindars or industrialists. सबके बारे में सोच के बताया. As I told you, the moderate leaders, they wanted to develop public awareness about the unjust behavior of the British rule, nature of the British rule. They wanted to explore the British attitude to the people. Okay, because general people, they won't understand what is happening in the capital city, or what is the attitude of the British towards the Indians and all. They wanted to make it clear for the people also. They published newspapers, wrote articles, and showed how British rule was leading to the economic ruin of the country. Ruin means nuksan. They felt that the British had respect for the ideals of freedom and justice, and so they would accept just the demands of the Indians. इनको लगा they will listen to our feelings, they will have, or I can say they will respect our feeling, and they will do justice by listening to our feelings. Did it really happen? Let's see. What was necessary, therefore, to express these demands and make the government aware about the feeling of the Indians? Only the intention of the moderate is to express their demands and make the government aware that the feelings of the Indians. So, okay, by writing these articles and all, हमारा जो मन की बात है वो आप तक तो पहुंचाना है, that is British government तक पहुंचाना है, और उनको पूरा भरोसा था कि the British people will definitely listen to our feelings and they will, or I can say, do modification accordingly. Now one slogan you are seeing, that is in the next slide, in this slide, freedom is our birthright. So that is, this famous slogan is said by our great leader Bal Gangadhar Tilak, the freedom fighter. By 1890s, many Indians began to raise questions about the political style of the Congress. In Bengal, Maharashtra and Punjab, leaders such as Bipin Chandrapal, Bal Gangadhar Tilak and Lala Lajpat Rai were beginning to explore new radical objectives and methods. So, this is very important, three important personalities you come across: Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, and Lala Lajpat Rai. And all these three personalities were from different parts of India, one from Punjab, and one from you can say Maharashtra, and one from Bengal. So they're famously known as trio Bal Lal Pal. So Bal Gangadhar Tilak का बाल लिया पहले, ओके, पहला पोर्शन बाल, देन बिपिन चंद्र पाल इसका पाल पीछे से, और लाला लाजपत राय का लाल, बाल लाल पाल. They criticized the moderates. They were also called as the radicals. They were also called as the extremists. They were also called as the aggressive leaders. उनका जो तरीका है फ्रीडम करने का, फ्रीडम लेने का, it was very very मतलब क्या था, डू और डाइस टाइप सिचुएशन. अगर सीधे नहीं मुंह सुनते हैं तो अटैक करो, हड़ताल करो, कुछ भी करो. ये सीधे साधे सुनने वाले नहीं है. प्रणाम प्रेयर से कुछ नहीं होगा, दैट थिंकिंग वाले थे. They criticized the moderates for their political prayers and emphasized the importance of self-reliance and constructive work. They argued that people must rely on their own strength, not on the good intention of the government. People must fight for Swaraj. Tilak raised the slogan, "Freedom is my birthright and I shall have it." So that is the word. You can say that स्वराज, fight for स्वराज, अपना स्वराज के लिए खुद लड़ाई करो, दूसरे के ऊपर रिलाई डिपेंड मत करो. And that is, he said, freedom is our birthright and I shall have it. Then in 1905, Viceroy Curzon, Lord Curzon, he is also called, partitioned Bengal. Bengal को partition किया, okay, टुकड़ा किया. At that time, Bengal was the biggest province of British India and included Bihar and parts of Orissa. So he partitioned. Now we can have a separate, that is, Bengal is partitioned as East Bengal and West Bengal at that time. And West Bengal came to be known as Pakistan, a separate nation after 1947. Then after 1975, or I can say in 70s, even Bangladesh is Pakistan. It was under the control of the British at the time of 1947. They also are split away from Pakistan and formed a new nation called Bangladesh. The British argued for dividing Bengal for reasons of administrative convenience. उनको पूछा गया कि why you have partitioned Bengal. They started giving so many excuses. क्या था? It was closely did to the interest of the British officials and businessmen. Even so, instead of removing the non-Bengal areas from the province, the government separated East Bengal and moved it with Assam. अगर ऐसा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कन्वीनियंस करना है तो ईस्ट बंगाल वेस्ट बंगाल सेपरेट करके से बंगाल को पार्टीशन करने की जरूरत नहीं था. बंगाल के साथ उड़ीसा और असम भी जुड़े हुए थे. यू वुड हैव सेपरेटेड असम और उड़ीसा फ्रॉम बंगाल. नो, बट दे हैव सेपरेटेड दिस विद इंटेंशन. वो दोनों में क्या करते थे, करना चाहते थे, उनको में यूनाइटेड होना नहीं चाहते थे. ओके, मुस्लिम्स को यूनाइटेड होना नहीं चाहते थे. Perhaps the main British motives were to split the Bengali people. तो इस तरह से वो करना चाहते थे. So stay tuned for more. So I think we have covered a little bit part of the chapter for today. You have to go through the textbook as well. In the meantime, keep watching and stay home and stay safe and take care of yourself. Bye bye and have a nice time. Thank you so much.